Thank you, Dr. Reynas, for the nice introduction, and thank you for the scientific committee for inviting me to present about transplant for multiple sclerosis, a project that's going slow, but hopefully that soon will launch fast more cases to undergo transplant. So before we start, we have to talk about Dr. Riccardo Saccardi, who's one of the pioneers for autologous transplant for multiple sclerosis, who died in 2024, and he was the chair of the Autoimmune Disorders Working Party in the EBMT from 2004 to 2008. He led many clinical trials, writing guidelines, many scientific committees. He has a lot of contribution to the field of the autologous transplant for multiple sclerosis. He led the JASI committee under the EBMT for 4 years, so he had a lot of contribution to the quality development. He is originally from Florence, where was the last EBMT in 2025 held. And also he was involved in the initial EBMT meeting in, I think it was 2008 in Florence, Italy. So in the last meeting, it was a recognition of his dedication to the transplant for multiple sclerosis. So multiple sclerosis is autoimmune disorders that affect the brain by causing demyelination and neuronal loss. And there are many disease-modifying agents that are very effective, but also stem cell transplant, especially autologous stem cell transplant, is one of the important therapies for this disease for the last 20 or 25 years. And high-dose immunosuppressive therapy with autologous transplant may induce sustained remission in comparison to other disease-modifying agents. This was taken with permission from Autoimmune Disorders, the Working Party. This is the last update about transplant activity for autoimmune disorders. As you see, more than 4,600 patients underwent stem cell transplant as part of the EBMT registries, and numbers are increasing with time. And these are the different diseases with different indications for stem cell transplant. The commonest one is, as you see, multiple sclerosis. More than 2,500 patients reported to the EBMT registry, followed by other diseases. The second most is the systemic sclerosis. So these two diseases, multiple sclerosis and systemic sclerosis, the autologous transplant is the standard of care for these diseases. And these are the activities based on the countries. Some countries are very active, like United Kingdom, Italy, Germany. And if you see down there in the tail, Saudi Arabia with some activities for transplant for autoimmune disorders. Multiple sclerosis is the commonest disease undergoing autologous transplant, and year by year, the number of transplants is increasing for multiple sclerosis. Again, some countries, they are more interested for transplant for multiple sclerosis. Saudi Arabia reported 11 cases. So transplant for multiple sclerosis is autologous transplant. Basically, we see the patient, if he fits the criteria, he undergo eligibility and workup, and if he is fit, he will undergo collection of the stem cells by cyclophosphamide plus G-CSF. Then after that, the pre-transplant workup will be done. Then the patient will be admitted for the procedure, where he will receive the conditioning regimen and then reinfusion of the stem cells, and then a period of neutropenia, usually less than 2 weeks, then quick recovery and discharge from the hospital, followed by long-term follow-up and maybe physiotherapy if needed. So how does it work? Basically, it causes the transplant here causes immune resetting. When we give the high-dose chemotherapy, we will ablate all the hematopoietic stem cells and autoreactive lymphoid cells. Then we reinfuse the new stem cells. that will recover a new immune system, naive T cells and B cells that will not cause autoimmune activity against the neurons. And this is how it works. Some definitions important for us as hematologists to know, because these are used by our colleagues in the neurology, but it is used in selection for patients for autologous transplant. This score, which is Expanded Disability Status Scale, EDSS score, is used as a screening patient to be eligible for transplant. For us as transplanter, we use ECOG, Karnofsky, but this is used for multiple sclerosis. So it's from 0, normal, until 10 or 9, completely dependent. So most of the guidelines, they said patient can be included in transplant up to the 6 or 6.5. Before that, after that, like patient wheelchair bound or bed bound, he is not eligible for transplant. Another definition, NEDA, or no evidence of disease activity. So post-transplant, we have to assess for relapses clinically and by radiologically by doing MRI. But also in this NEDA, so they depend on clinical assessment, no relapse, no disability progression, and no MRI activity. And this is a common endpoint for many of the clinical trials. This is a retrospective study done by one of the pioneers of transplant for multiple sclerosis, Richard Perth from Chicago. As you see, the care for autologous transplant compared to disease-modifying therapies is outstanding significantly in favor of transplant, but this is a retrospective study. Also, regarding the NEDA, you see the effective transplant is much better than in preventing relapses compared to other disease-modifying therapies. And also, in this publication, they collected all the studies using very effective disease-modifying agents and autologous transplant. And as you see, the proportion of the patient who had relapses below, 80% or more than 90% of patients who underwent transplant did not have any relapses. Compared to those with disease-modifying agent, majority will have relapses. So very clear here, the effect of transplant is much better than other disease-modifying therapies. But despite this is unfortunately retrospective studies or collection of studies. Based on this, we don't receive a lot of referrals for patients to undergo autologous transplant. The transplant for MS is a safe procedure. As you see, this is a large number of patients done also by Dr. Richard Perth. 150 patients underwent transplant. Transplant-related mortality is 0. So it is a very safe procedure. Fortunately, now there are multiple randomized studies comparing disease-modifying therapies, very effective disease-modifying therapies, to autologous transplant. And I think the result of these studies will change the algorithm of management of these patients. I'm sure it will be positive in favor of transplant, and based on this will change the pathway and the guideline for referring patient for transplant earlier. So this is when we want to select patient for transplant, first thing we have to take in consideration the neurological variables. As you see in the scale up, if it is in the green, the patient is recommended to undergo transplant. If it is in the red, it's not recommended. In the yellow, it's uncertain. So the variables here, if the age is less than 45, this is a good candidate. Disease duration less than 10 years, good candidate. Focal inflammation by MRI, multiple inflammation or high inflammation, this is a good candidate compared to those who had MRI with no active inflammatory lesions. EDSS score less than 4 compared to more than 6. Cognitive impairment, no versus major cognitive impairment. And the type of the MS. The relapsing remitting, based on many studies, they are the one who benefit from autologous transplant compared to those who had secondary progressive or primary progressive. Subsequently, Those in the green scale, so if they fail one highly effective disease-modifying therapies, they are eligible to undergo autologous transplant. While those in the yellow or the red can be considered if the risk of the procedure is low, meaning that the patient doesn't have comorbidities to make him having a high risk of mortality or morbidity. Plus, EDS score is increasing despite treatment. Plus, there are clinical or MRI inflammatory activities within the past 12 months. Regarding the hematologic variables, so if there is no medical comorbidities or no infections, good performance status, and the patient already has family planning or has children, this will be a good candidate compared to those who have multiple comorbidities like renal, liver, or other comorbidities, or active infection or poor performance status. And we see here in the table more the description of the previous pathway. So those who are suitable for transplant, younger than 45, disease duration less than 10 years, relapsing remitting, EDS score less than 6, capacity to give informed consent, and markers of disease aggressiveness. Regarding the type of the conditioning regimens, as you know, there are myeloablative, there is reduced intensity, and non-myeloablative. Here we need myeloablative or strong immunoablative regimens. So we have the high intensity regimen like CyTBI, then we have BEAM, then we have the intermediate or lymphoablative or non-myeloablative cyclophosphamide and ATG. And these are the type of conditioning regimen reported to the ABMT registry up to March 2016. You see the commonest regimen here was BEAM, 58%. With some patients, the second one is cyclophosphamide ATG. But we know BEAM is really myeloablative regimen, and the patient need to be very fit to undergo BEAM. Here also showing the type of the conditioning regimen based if there is increased myeloablation or increased lymphoablation. So the Canadian protocols like BEAM or CyTBI, they are myeloablative and lymphoablative. HALT-MS is also BEAM, and MIST protocol, which is cyclophosphamide ATG, mainly depend on lymphoablation. So this is the protocol that we are using, and currently is the most popular regimen used for conditioning for MS, which is cyclophosphamide 200 milligram per kg and ATG 6 milligram per kg. And this is the initial report from Richard Burt in 2015. After this, there was shift in the utilization or the commonly used regimen toward the cyclophosphamide ATG and less use of other regimen like BEAM ATG. So since that publication in 2005, we have more increase of cyclophosphamide ATG compared to other regimens. For our center, we started in 2018. Our experience, we gathered with our colleagues in the neurology department, and we put the local guidelines, indications, treatment protocols. So the patient will be initially assessed and referred to us by neurology, then he will be assessed by us. We use the condition immobilization regimen cyclophosphamide GCSF, targeting more than 5 million per kg CD34, and the conditioning regimen is cyclophosphamide plus ATG. Supportive medications, prednisone for 8 days to prevent activities of MS during the conditioning. GCSF from day 3 plus prophylactic antibiotic plus hemorrhagic cystitis prevention by hyperhydration, Mizna, and folic catheter with high-dose cyclophosphamide. This is the regimen that we are using, cyclophosphamide plus ATG, a lot of supportive regimens. And we did a retrospective review of our cases. So we did 9 cases. The median age was 35. The oldest one was 43. 6 male, 3 female. The median duration of disease, 7 years. One patient had 14 years of disease duration. And the disease subtype relapsing remitting, 6 cases. Neuropaget, 1 case. NMOSD, 1 case. And one patient, he had one activity of MS, but he was very interested to go autologous transplant, and we did for him transplant. The median EDSS was 5.5, median number of previous therapies 2, number of relapses last 2 years pre-transplant 2, comorbidities there, mobilization and conditioning was mentioned. So these are the follow-up now, 959 days. And the first patient underwent transplant now completed 7 years. The median CD34 was 11 million. Stem cell collection was in day plus 12. Median platelet engraftment 15, and median ANC engraftment was day 9.
Sorry, 1 minute.
Okay, so limited number of transfusion and duration of hospitalization was 22 days. So after a median follow-up of 2.6 years, clinical relapses, none of the patient has any clinical relapse. None had progression, and none had MRI activities. So all patients are surviving, no relapse, transplant-related mortality. Toxicities, acceptable toxicity, mucositis, febrile neutropenia, respiratory infection, hemorrhagic cystitis, no patients, CMV 4 patients. 5 patients had admissions, but for different reasons or for infections, no ICU admissions. So in our local experience, very well selected MS patients, we think the outcome is excellent, and it's very encouraging to refer and to do more patients. We need longer follow-up, we need larger cohort. It is a safe procedure, and based, I think, on the currently ongoing randomized clinical trial. Once that we will have the result of these randomized studies, we will have more patients to benefit from the autologous transplant. For the first 7 years since we started the protocol, we had only 1 or 2 cases referred to us, but this year we had 10 cases already referred to us. So involving neurologists is very important, and getting their interest is very important to be involved and refer cases to us. I would like to acknowledge and thank our team and our patients and their families. Thank you very much.